Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
It's the comfort level for me of understanding how I can maximize my time, not only during that 3.5 hour window on Sunday, but the time leading up to the games and how I prepare our entire team, coaches included, alongside our players, to be at our best when we get those 17 opportunities. And I feel very strongly that I've learned a lot. There's a lot of things that I feel we did well, but there's definitely some things that I look back on personally that I could be much better for our team, and that's going to be a major priority for me.
I love the way he phrases certain things, like those 17, not games, opportunities in the National Football League.
And there were 18 really this year.
There were 18 opportunities. Well, if you want to count preseason, technically there were like 21 opportunities to grow and get better. Well, Purple Daily, we have at least 365 opportunities, sometimes multiple in one day. Like today, we're giving you a bonus episode. You guys are going to sit down with Thor Nystrom. I have a conflict today. I'm presenting something to our Hubbard St. Louis office that can't, the time slot can't move, and we can't move Thor, and so I'm going to have to bow out of today's Purple Daily, unfortunately. You guys can clown me all you want to.
Oh, no, we won't be clowning you.
I might be joining you from
chill over here.
If I don't join an airplane tomorrow, I might just be from MSP for like 3 days starting tomorrow if I don't make my flight.
What time is your flight tomorrow?
1 o'clock, and I think I'm literally going to be right in the sweet spot of this supposed lull in the snowstorms. So I might be on the tail end of when things are just about to pick up again, and I think then I'll be okay. I think, God willing, I'll be okay.
Not to be the bearer of bad news, but Channel 45, one of our sister stations this morning said they're already starting to cancel flights. See, they try to get a jump start on it. Like that's
Sports
the problem.
Dad just coming in.
That's
By the way, Dex, your
that's the
flight's
problem.
canceled.
I said I prefaced it with the very curb, like not to be the bearer of bad news. So don't blame me, but they're starting to cancel flights already.
But you are the bearer. You can't say not to be the bearer of
well,
bad
no,
news.
but I'm not. But I'm the messenger.
You are the bearer of bad news.
But you guys have heard the term "don't shoot the messenger." I'm the messenger.
Yeah, you could have. Yes, but you're
I'm
still
not canceling the flights.
But you're bringing a bad message, so you're still the bearer.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Not to be. Don't blame me. Let me off the hook. But I am the bearer of great news when it comes to our Vikings. I know that.
Well, we'll see about that because we're going to talk about Kevin O'Connell. And let's go through on this bonus episode today, just sort of where we think he is after his first year. What can he improve on? What do we like the best about him? Purple Daily, presented by TCL, which is now an official partner of the NFL. Redefine creativity with the 30V 5G smartphone from TCL. Enjoy blazing fast 5G speed and an AI-powered 50 megapixel triple camera system. Yeah, that's a lot of megapixels. Ultra realistic and true to life visuals powered by Next Vision and booming sound from the dual speakers. Learn more at TCL.com. So here's my first question for you guys on KOC here. I'm going to just ask you a series of questions. I want you to grade him on an A to F scale, rookie season as a head coach. A being 1998 Dennis Green,
okay,
or whatever. Maybe it's like 1970 something Bud Grant. You know, whatever your A version of a Vikings head coaching season is. And then the F being like 1983 Les Steckel, just one and done, embarrassing, back to Bud Grant. How would you grade Kevin O'Connell in his first season?
Oh boy. So it's definitely not 98 Dennis Green, but it's pretty damn strong. I would grade him as a B. So if Green is an A plus or Green is an A right there, I would say he gets a B plus. I would say that he did a very good job. And look, I mean, he came in and changed a lot of things, took right or wrong, largely the same group of people who had failed pretty significantly for a couple of years with Zim and did something that I certainly didn't think was possible. I mean, yes, they were probably fortunate to win 13 games, but at the end of the day, they still won 13 games. So I would say a B plus. I thought for his first year, first time head coach, he did a really, really good job.
I'd give him an A minus. I'm going to go up to an A minus. Certainly not perfect, but he exceeded expectations, won 13 games, brought this team a division championship a month before the season ended, brought him to the doorsteps of a home playoff game. It didn't end great, and there were certainly some warts to pick out, which we'll get into in this episode as well. I think it's an A minus. I think it's above B plus work. It's in that A category for me, so I go A minus.
Yeah, I'm kind of more with Declan on this. I'm actually going to give him an A. I think I'm going to give him an A. The defense is the one thing that you would say, okay, wow. And there were some offensive things here and there, but ultimately he took a team that had kind of sputtered, 8-9 wins under Mike Zimmer, and also one of the worst defenses in the league. So it wasn't like the defense took a big step back or anything. They just kind of remained bad under Kevin O'Connell. But he took essentially, 90% of the same players, most of the key players, and increased the win total by 5 in his rookie season. So I think if you just look at it from that perspective, okay, you're gonna swap coaches and basically run it back with the same core with a couple different tweaks here and there. Add a Harrison Phillips and another guy or two. Ed Ingram at right guard or something. If you can increase the win total by 5 over the guy that got fired, he did a great job. Playoff failure, defense, maybe waiting too long. I think we're going to get to some of the other things about him too, so I don't want to go too far here, but there are things to nitpick. But at the end of the day, the guy did almost double the win total from fired Mike Zimmer. Okay, what do you think is KOC's best attribute?
I think it's his ability to galvanize the team, locker room. I don't even think it's in question. This team definitely needed a change in chemistry and, to use Patrick Royce's favorite word, culture, and he did a great job. Seeing his post-game speeches after wins was pretty impressive, and those are hard to be impressive in because they can get really cliched really fast. But you've got to convey a sense of who you are. It's got to come off as sincere, and I feel like O'Connell does a really good job of that. If you go to a guy like Fleck, right? There's times where you're like, this sort of seems like an act. Like, this doesn't seem like it's sustainable or real. I don't think in year one that there was one time where I saw O'Connell and I'm like, this isn't him. So I think that's the most important step. I think he was a culture changer which this franchise desperately was in need of. So just as a starting point, I think that's his greatest attribute as a person, because that also is incredibly important for a coach.
I would say just being an offensive-minded coach and being with the times. Mike Zimmer was at one time still with the times. I know he brought back the defense, but it still worked in that era of the NFL, right? Like in 2015-17, you were still able to play shutdown defense, and his defense was really damn good. Got them the number one defense in the NFL. Brought him on the doorstep of winning a Super Bowl or going to a Super Bowl potentially. But then things got stale, right? The times changed. Sean McVay came in. Jared Goff all of a sudden was developing. Then these new influx of quarterbacks came in, and the Vikings were still kind of stuck in their ways. I think Kevin O'Connell coming in here and just making this offense what it should be, which was a top 10 offense, unlocking some of those attributes from Kirk, feeding Justin Jefferson, feeding TJ Hawkinson, just basically making the Vikings offense look more timely. And I think what's even scarier is, in a good way, is that we still haven't seen the Vikings offense reach its fullest potential, right? Like we were asking the Vikings just to be a top 10 offense. That was the floor of our expectation. And I think whoever comes in here next, whether it's still Kirk in year 2 of Kevin O'Connell's system or a new quarterback, how does Kevin O'Connell take a top 10 offense and not just have him 9th or 8th and bring them 1st, 2nd, or 3rd?
Yeah, I think connecting with players, definitely, if Mike Zimmer wasn't making eye contact and his coaching staff with Brian O'Neill in the hallway, Kevin O'Connell was giving these ride or die speeches after every win. The one where his voice cracks. I think, was it after the historic comeback? Or maybe it was one of the other games, and his voice kind of cracked, and he had to pause, and the team starts clapping, and he goes, I will ride with this group until they won't let us play any more games. Like Mike Zimmer wasn't connecting with guys on that level. He's not giving bear hugs to players after he gives them a game ball in the locker room. So now can that maybe be a problem if not harnessed in the right way? Is he going to be able to make objective decisions about players that he loves and that he has poured his entire soul into building relationships with. We're going to find that out maybe even in the next few weeks. So I would say connecting with players, and then, the stats don't necessarily fully bear this out because they did slip in some of these areas toward the end of the year, but I would say situational offense is a big strength of his. At least he's aware of it. They do a lot of work in practice and during the offseason, at least in his first year, on fourth quarter, close games, 2-minute drill, third downs, red zones. So, to me, those are the areas where you can be great all you want in the scripted plays. You can be great all you want between the 20s, but if you can't convert in those sort of high leverage situations, and the Vikings, when the fourth quarter came around offensively, they were one of the best and most explosive offenses in the league. So I would say, I guess I'm cheating. I'm saying his two best attributes are connecting with players and just situational high leverage offense. On the flip side, what is the number one thing you want Kevin O'Connell to be better at in his second year?
I think this is the one thing that is very difficult for guys, especially now, because they're almost always hired because of an expertise on one side of the football. But I want him to do a better job of running the entire team. He doesn't get an A or A minus from me, in part because the Donatel hire has to be held against him. That was a massive whiff. It was an assumption that was dangerous and incorrect, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so, you have to run the team. You can't say, Ed Donatel runs a defense that I like because Vic Fangio had success with that, and therefore Ed is the guy who's going to. You at some point in time, Kevin had to step in stronger. The Giants playoff game, he clearly didn't step in enough. There was playing time that wasn't distributed in that game that made no sense. So, and look, this is not like a huge demerit. It's not like he gets an F, but I think it's the reality of how you parse out your time and maybe give up some responsibilities that you enjoy, because there's other responsibilities that now fall under your purview that you didn't really want to as much. But that's my biggest thing. And I think that is something that all first-time head coaches learn. But the Donatel one, the defensive one, was definitely a strike against him.
Yeah, you can't just ignore completely the other side of the football. And I understood at the time what obviously Kevin O'Connell was doing, hiring a veteran guy like Ed Donatel, who's been around numerous defenses for basically his entire life. But he kind of ignored that part. And another area for me, something that I was harping on with you guys, is short yardage to go situations. He just got way too cute on the 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, lining up in shotgun a lot. I'm all for the offense looking modern. You can still do that, but there's also situations where you don't have to completely be in shotgun formation and confusing situations when all you need to do is 2 more yards. You don't need to go for a home run play on 4th and 2. You just got to get 2 more yards, new set of downs, then pull out your next bag of tricks, right? So I would say short yardage to go situations, he sometimes overthought things and got a little bit too ahead of his skis, and I think that's the area where he'll have to improve next season.
Yeah. I definitely agree with what Judd said in terms of you're the head coach of a football team here. And he did halfway through the season. Okay, they did the self-scout, and he, according to reports, he sat down with Ed Donatel and said, all right, as an offensive guy, here's how predictable your defense is. But ultimately, you signed off on the hire. You let these 400-yard, opposing offense performances continue for 6 weeks, and you rode Ed Donatel into the playoffs. So, being the head coach of the whole team, that's, even if it means giving up play calling at some point, because you're just more valuable as the overseer of everything. But I'm going to be more specific. One of the things I'd really like to see improve, the Vikings offense would just disappear for 2 quarters almost every game. They would either not show up in the first half and then have to, light the thing on fire in the second half, like that Colts game. Or they would, in the third quarter, for instance, at the halfway mark of the season, the Vikings were averaging 1.5 points per third quarter. And they did wind up, because of the Colts game and because of a couple other games toward the end, they wound up going from dead last in third quarter scoring to 22nd, but they still averaged 3.5 points per third quarter. So, okay, you're coming out of the locker room. One of the big things he preaches is, the middle 8, right? Winning the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. And they just weren't scoring points in the third quarter. They'd go and, cliche halftime adjustments. I don't know what they were doing at halftime in some of these games, but you can't just disappear offensively for like 2 or 3 quarters and then expect to flip the switch. That's not going to be a sustainable formula against a first place schedule in 2023. And then my last KOC question, and we will get to a mock here on this episode. Do you guys think KOC has the chops, after seeing him for 1 year, to lead the Vikings to a Super Bowl championship? If the roster stars align, ultimately it's going to be Kwesi having to build the roster. But do you think he has the chops at some point in the next 5 to 8 years to coach a Super Bowl winning team?
I will start out by saying I have no idea, because that all depends on one thing. Can he find the quarterback? Like, this is actually a more important scouting question for him. Yes, I think as a coach, he definitely does. I think he has a mentality that I like. I think he has a mentality that players gravitate towards. I think that if they get the right components in place on defense, they will ultimately be fine there. But you know what we don't know? We don't know how good a scout he is when it comes to quarterbacks. And that is the question. Like, do I think that he has the chops to take a slappy QB who signed off the street and win a championship? No, most coaches don't. Almost no coaches do.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think as a coach he does. But that being said, my answer in that vein almost doesn't matter, because the real question is, because my contention is Kirk Cousins is never going to win a championship. Can he identify, can the Vikings position themselves in the right place to get a quarterback who he can then ride to a championship as a coach? So this really all depends on answering that question in my mind. Yes, I will say as a coach he does, but no, he doesn't if he can't find the quarterback.
Do you think he thinks Kirk Cousins can win a championship?
You know, Phil, that's a very interesting question that always goes back to my covering the Wild in 2003, when they had no chance in my mind to go to the Stanley Cup. And that's the first time I realized people who work in that end, I mean, high-end coaches and players, don't think like we think. So they suspend. What I realized back then is the ability of coaches and players, for the most part, to suspend their belief in what we think is real and not. They think, yes, I can. So yes, I do think he does think that.
I do too.
But I also don't think that I think they probably talk about identifying a quarterback for the future. But yes, I think if you were to ask him sincerely, do you think that you can win a championship with Kirk? He would say yes. I happen to disagree with that.
One of the biggest things I've been wrong about over the last 12 to 15 months on this show is, and there's Twitter evidence of me saying this. I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't remember what the exact tweet was. When Kwesi and KOC signed on to lead the Vikings, I said, do the math here, folks. Are these guys really, when it came to a Kirk contract extension, are these guys really going to attach the first 2 or 3 years of their coaching and GM careers to Kirk Cousins, who's never come close at any level of his football life to winning a championship, high school, college, or the NFL? And the answer so far has been they happily attach themselves to the first year of Cousins, and they won 13 games. They're almost certainly going to attach the second year of their GM and head coaching tenures to Cousins, and there's a pretty good chance that they extend him into 2024, which means they're going to commit probably the first 3 years of running the franchise, of NFL franchise for the first time, to Kirk Cousins. To me, I think that's play it safe mode. To me, when you are Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, these types of quarterbacks, you can definitely do a lot worse, and that's why you have those guys. That's why you don't move off those guys, because what if you draft a Christian Ponder, right? But are you really winning a Super Bowl with those guys making $30 to $40 million? And to this point, both Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi have said yes, with hubris, have said, yes, we can. This is a central part of our plan. And so if he continues to be steadfast in paying a non-elite quarterback elite money, he can't win. I don't think he can win a Super Bowl doing it that way. I don't think there's a blueprint out there unless someone can find one. Well, Matthew Stafford with the Rams. Well, Matthew Stafford, I know people like to lump him in with Kirk Cousins because, they're both kind of that, 10th to 15th ranked quarterback. But you got to remember, Matthew Stafford, in terms of just pure talent and upside, was the number 1 overall pick. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college, highly touted, right? And then he got stuck with the Lions franchise, one of the most dumpster fire franchises in professional sports for a decade. So I don't put Stafford and Cousins on the same level. And I don't think you can say, well, KOC was part of a team that won it with Stafford. Therefore, you can do the same thing with Cousins. Those are two different human beings, two different wirings, two totally different scenarios, if you ask me.
I think in fairness, though, we don't know what's going to cause them to potentially pivot. And so, like, that's the thing is there's still a lot of unknown and unexplored ground here when it comes to Kwesi and Kevin. And so, you know, we don't know in off-season conversations what's going to cause them to say, yeah, you know what, this guy's good, but he's not. And plus, if they ever think, especially Kevin, if he ever thinks that he can get a quarterback that he's identified and he can develop, I think that ball of clay is too seductive to keep a guy like Kirk. So
but they have to be in a position. That's the problem with, like, when you have Kirk Cousins. Every team that's ever had Kirk Cousins, the worst season is 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been a 5-win Kirk Cousins team. There's never been a 3-win Kirk Cousins team. Hang the banner. You avoid being a train wreck when Kirk Cousins is your quarterback. But you also have a glass ceiling on how far you can go while simultaneously eliminating you from ever having a top 10 pick. It's been like 8 years of that with Washington, with Minnesota. So the longer you continue to go, yeah, it's safe. You're definitely going to be competitive when you have Kirk Cousins. But are you going to win a Super Bowl? And if you're not going to win a Super Bowl, okay, well, how do you find the next quarterback that's going to make a lot less money and maybe have more upside? Or are you going to draft him at 23? How lucky would you have to be for, like, the next Lamar Jackson to fall to you? Maybe Anthony Richardson falls, but you're probably, as long as you have Cousins, you're probably going to have to be aggressive and trade a bunch of assets to move up to find his replacement. That's the reality.
That Giants playoff game, too, provides such an interesting juxtaposition of Kirk because, you know, statistically, his defenders will say, and rightfully so, man, look at this. He wasn't why they lost that game. He was fantastic, and he was statistically. But if you're the Vikings, wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall to know what is the rationale of Kirk Cousins was really good he checked it down on 4th and 8. Because that's not going to be ignored. Like, football people that was a blip on the radar. That's like a tell. Yeah. So it would be so interesting to have been, or to be in that building as they sort of discuss these things and, like, who takes the fault for that? Because, I mean, that's ultimately Kirk's call. Like, that play wasn't drawn up. So, like, that's sort of the story of Kirk. Which side do you take there?
I feel like every football person, too, like people that are in the league or recently retired. We heard from Patrick Peterson on his podcast, Kurt Warner, you know, our guy, Alex Boone, Jeremiah Cyrils came on Purple Daily a few weeks ago. Like, every person in the league or recently retired has had the same reaction to that. There's a lot of fans who are trying to defend it. Like, well, what's he supposed to do? There's pressure. You know, blah, blah. But, like, everyone in the league has said, of course there's going to be pressure. Like, you still don't make that throw. And you're right. I think it is a topic. I don't know if it's like the thing that prevents them from extending him through 2024 and lowering the cap hit, but in terms of can you win a Super Bowl, throws like that, I think, like, you have to discuss, like, okay, if it's a moment of football crisis, is this what his brain is going to do? I will say, on a positive note, just to answer the question of, you know, can KOC, does he have the chops to lead the Vikings to a Super Bowl? If you look at the last 4 Super Bowls and the coaches that have at least brought their team to the Super Bowl, either lost or won it, there's 6 of them. 6 different coaches have coached in the Super Bowl the last 4 years. Sean McVay, Andy Reid, Bruce Arians, Zach Taylor, Nick Sirianni, Kyle Shanahan. All 6 of them offensive-minded. Mm-hmm. All 6 of them aggressive play callers. And all 6 of them excellent at developing and maximizing quarterbacks. And Kevin O'Connell, to this point, seems to kind of fit that mold. He's offensive-minded. He was very aggressive, and not only in play calling, but just in the way that he preached to Kirk Cousins, keep pumping the ball down the field when the game is close, late. And he got the most out of Cousins, at least in, like, the high leverage situations, than any coach has to this point. So I'm not saying that because Sean McVay and, you know, Kyle Shanahan went to a Super Bowl that that KOC now he's destined to, but he at least sort of fits that blueprint. Okay, do you guys want a mock?
Let's do this mock, yeah.
Okay,
let's do it.
Let's fire this up here. A quick mock for you guys. It's our mock draft roundup. We've done, I don't know, it looks like about 16 of these so far, and 2/3 of them have the Vikings drafting a cornerback. So that's the way that the mock world is leaning at this point. This mock draft presented by our friends at Athletic Greens. Talk about a game changer. Athletic Greens AG1. So for me, and I've been using Athletic Greens products personally for like 6 years, I want to say, since 2017. And the biggest things I notice with the latest AG1 mix is that my brain fog is lifted. My energy levels are heightened. It helps with my gut health, supports my immune system. I just feel dialed in after drinking my AG1 mix. 1 scoop mixed in with water. You can either do it in the morning. I've kind of mixed it up now. I'll do it in the morning sometimes, but sometimes I'll wait and do it like middle of the day so that I don't hit that little 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, snooze period. But 75 high quality ingredients giving me and all of you who have partaken in this important daily nutrients. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/purpledaily, athleticgreens.com/purpledaily, and you can help us out as well when you go and use that link, athleticgreens.com/purpledaily. All right, dudes, let's mock here from our friends at cbssports.com. No trade with the number 1 pick.
Okay.
They just have Will Anderson going to the Bears.
All right.
And then they have Bryce Young going to the Texans, Jalen Carter to the Cardinals, CJ Stroud Colts. Let's skip down here. First cornerback is Joey Porter Jr. to the Lions at 6.
Ooh, he's going up on this one.
Mm-hmm. Will Levis to the Raiders at 7. Anthony Richardson to the Panthers at 9.
Okay.
Second cornerback, Christian Gonzalez to the Eagles. First receiver goes to the Texans, Jordan Addison at 12. Quentin Johnston, the second receiver, to the Patriots at 14. Let's see. Let's just get down to the Vikings here. Let's see. Okay, wow. Pick 23. According to CBSSports.com, the Minnesota Vikings select out of Georgia, cornerback Kelly Ringo.
I want a mock.
Great football name, by the way.
Kelly
I
Ringo.
love Ringo for a football name.
It is pretty
Of course
good.
you do.
Just go with the one name.
Yep.
The Georgia to first round pipeline continues a year after 5 Bulldogs went in round 1. Expect a handful this time around 2. Ringo is a long physical corner who has matched up against some of the best players in the country. They've got him as the 5th best cornerback here, according to CBS's rankings. So maybe you guys can ask Thor about him or something. Yeah. So that's the second time we've seen Kelly Ringo go to the Vikings in these mocks. Lance Zierlein from NFL.com also had Kelly Ringo. So another cornerback to the Vikings in a mock.
Perhaps I'll surprise people.
Interesting. Also a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, helping keep the lights on here for our football takes at Score North and Purple Daily. Federated's been helping business owners for over 100 years. It's like having a great offensive line, protecting your business, looking out on the horizon at various risks. You can find out more at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, dudes. There we go. We just gave Kevin O'Connell his report card. I'm sure he will watch this episode or listen to it about 9 times.
Pretty positive. I mean, he deserves
so.
it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what grade would you guys give him? So we have B+, A-, A here. Let us know in the YouTube comment section, and please click the like button and the subscribe button to help spread the word about this awesome Vikings fan community you guys are helping us build. And we'll see you. You guys will be connecting with Thor here for a deep, reckless speculation draft dive. And then tomorrow, write that down, predictions and an accountability session. See ya.